Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Mary Rubin, and I am the Public Awareness Chair for RAAC. And RAAC is the Regional Archival Associations Consortium, which encompasses multi-state, state, and local archival organizations. This webinar titled, What is a Regional Archival Organization? Will cover 5 different archival organizations, their structures, and their initiatives, including fundraising, publications, annual meetings, and so much more. Before I get into introducing our panelists, I want to mention that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared to the RAAC listserv tomorrow. I encourage everyone to turn off their cameras and microphones while our panelists are presenting. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. However, they will be answered at the end of today's session. There will be time at the end for the panelists to answer your questions. Getting to our panelists, covering multi-state archival organizations, Jeremy Brett will be speaking on both the Society of Southwest Archivists and the Midwest Archives Conference. Jeremy Brett is an associate professor at Cushing Memorial Library and Archives, where he is both processing archivist and the curator of the science fiction and fantasy research collection. He has also worked at the University of Iowa, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, the National Archives and Records Administration Pacific Region, and the Wisconsin Historical Society. He received his MLS and his MA in history from the University of Maryland College Park in 1999, and his professional interests include science fiction, fan studies, and the intersection of libraries and social justice. Covering state archival organizations, we have Kathy Smith and Lorraine Stuart. Kathy Smith will be talking about the Society of Tennessee Archivists. Kathy Smith joined the Vanderbilt University in 1996 as a reference archivist. She was promoted in 2001 to Associate Director of the Special Collections and University Archives. In the summer of 2020, she became the University Archivist. Her primary focus is on collecting and developing the university archives and engaging students, scholars, and patrons in their use. A native Pennsylvanian, Kathy's prior employment included working as an archivist at Lafayette College and at a historical society identifying historical structures for inclusion in historic preservation planning. Lorraine Stuart will be speaking about the Society of Mississippi Archivists. Lorraine is a certified archivist and digital archive specialist. Lorraine has served as the head of special collections / curator of historical manuscripts and archives at the University of Southern Mississippi. She's a past archives director at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, a position she held for 20 years. She has served with various local, regional, and national archival associations and has made presentations on archival topics at the local through international levels. Covering a local archival organization, Annia Gonzalez will be talking about the South Florida Archives Collective. Annia Gonzalez is the Special Collections Librarian at Special Collections and University Archives Department at Florida International University in Miami, Florida. Annia is responsible for arranging, describing, preserving, and facilitating access to the special collections materials. She also works with donors in the assessment, property rights, and legal issues regarding donations to the library. Annia provides research and research assistance in topics related to Cuba, Latin America, the Caribbean, Florida, and Miami. Lastly, I want to reiterate that there will be time at the end for the panelists to answer questions. Please feel free to post them in the chat at any time. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeremy.
Thank you. Sorry, that took a little bit to find the keys. So good morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. We're all over the place, I know. I assume you are. So thank you, Mary, for putting this together, and thanks to my fellow panelists in advance. I'm here to talk to you today very briefly about 2 of the regional multi-state archival organizations. I consider these are organizations that I am a member of. Since I was a student back in way farther back I'd like to think about, I've been a member and or involved with the regionals because I think the regionals are a great launching pad, whether they're regional on the multi-state level, on the state level, as we're going to hear, or on the within a state level. They're a great place for students and new professionals in the field to get involved due to their low cost, due to their relatively small membership, which allows for more networking, allow more intimate associations. So I think there's a real advantage to regionals that you may not find in a large organization like SAA, which of course serves the broader archival public and has its own bureaucracies and advantages therein. So that's my long way of getting around to saying why I'm interested in talking about the regionals and sort of promoting them to the audiences. The first one I want to talk about very briefly is the Society of the Southwest Archivists. That is, since I live in Texas right now, that is sort of my home regional. Society of Southwest Archivists, or SSA, is a 6-state network of archival institutions and professionals. It was founded in 1972, so we are, we are coming up on the 50th anniversary of the institution. It includes the members are Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. It includes archivists from private, public, federal, native repositories. I mentioned native and specifically with SSA because SSA covers a geographic range that has a particularly large Native American presence. Thus, in SSA's programming and outreach, there's a particular focus on activities related to Native archives, including things like the recent statement of support for the protocols for Native American materials, the construction of a workshop in 2019 that is still available on introducing the protocols to your institution if you have Native materials, and including in all annual meeting literature, land acknowledgements. So there's some ways in which the Native presence is recognized among SSA. It's a fairly simple structure. See, there's a president, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, a 6-member executive board. The board serves 2 terms. Our current president of SSA this year is Amy Rushing, University of Texas San Antonio. The mainstay of the work of SSA, as with a lot of these type of organizations, is done by the committees. We have 13 standing committees on, I'm not going to read them all out to you, but on such things as the annual meeting programming, membership, nominating, professional development, the same sorts of committees that you find across these kind of organizations. And none of these really come as a surprise. Dues for SSA are noticeably cheap, I think. It's only $25 a year if you are a student or retiree. It's $15 a year. This kind of low cost of a membership is another reason why I like to stress the importance of regionals, especially, as I say, for students and new professionals who may not have maybe a little more in dire financial straits than a lot of us. It's a good way to get involved with the profession without bankrupting yourself. So among the major activities that SSA routinely finds itself in, like most associations, it runs a newsletter called the Southwestern Archivists. It comes out 4 times a year. It includes news items, reports from individuals, from repositories. There's an emphasis on, there's a growing emphasis on diversity amongst our profession and institutions, with a semi-regular column on diversity in the archives, which features interviews with archivists who are themselves from what we might call diverse groups, or have diverse collections, or represent a institution of diverse origins. Regionals, especially things, these big regionals like SSA or MAC, are also notable for providing financial support to people who need them. There's a number of different scholarships that SSA offers. For in particular, the annual meeting scholarship, which provides, will pay the cost of annual meeting registration for people who apply and pass. The Aoris Haber Jr. Education Scholarship funds professional development opportunities for archivists. Gracie Student Scholarship, which provides book fees and tuition assistance to SSA student members, and the Caldwell Student Scholarship, which lets library school students to attend the annual meeting. There are, as you notice, a couple of these represent the annual. A couple of these scholarships refer specifically to the annual meeting because, as you might imagine, for SAA on down, these type of annual meetings or conferences are kind of the mainstay for social interaction, professional interaction among members. In the case of the annual meeting of Society of Southwest Archivists, ours for this year just concluded last week. It was virtual, as those of you out there who've been having annual meetings, probably yours are virtual too. We obviously did not have one in a meeting at all in 2020 due to COVID, but we managed to have a quite successful one completely virtually this year. There are reduced prices for students. The scholarships for SSA for the annual meeting are funded in part by what we call SLOTO. This is the silent auction that we do every year. And there are levels of sponsorship for different archival institutions and archival archives companies that can help fund and bring the annual meeting to a larger group of people. Sorry, go on there. Oops, there we go. Another reason to join or take part in regional activities are the educational opportunities that it offers, often that these offer, often at lower prices than you might get at something like SAA or an outside institution. These include workshops, classes for which people are eligible for archival recertification credits. The other educational opportunities SSA provides, we have a database that is can compare regional salaries for archivists in different parts of the SSA region. It is in need of updating, I will say that. Various outreach tools, a communication forum, aka the listserv. There's a job board with particularly interest to students and new professionals looking for new career opportunities. But I'm particularly interested in any regional with which I'm associated with their advocacy efforts. SSA has been particularly strong in this in the last few years. They have been issued statements of support and endorsement for various causes. For example, last year, in epidemic of police violence, they issued Black Lives Matter support for Black Lives Matter. They issued a statement in late 2020 condemning Donald Trump's Executive Order 13950. This was the one that denied federal funds to any training program, employee training program that sought to teach how to phrase this being politic. Let's say it would based semi in critical race theory, put it that way. This was something that SSA condemned. SSA has a provision of advocacy support for requesting institutions. SSA also has a community, what they call a community outreach fund. This with $1,000 a year, give or take in it. Archival students can apply for this to financial support for any advocacy efforts or programs they may wish to undertake. So it's a way of SAA realizing what most of us have come to realize as archivists, that advocacy is a core function of our job. And to do it, we need, like anything else, we need resources, we need support. And this is just another way to be able to provide that kind of support on a regional level. I'm also impressed by SSA's formal commitment to diversity and inclusion. I say that not just because I'm on the diversity committee, well, that's certainly part of it, but the formal commitment to diversity includes not only the traditional categories you would think of when you think of diversity, gender, sexual orientation, that kind of thing, but also what they call professional and geographic factors. What that means is SSA has created a diverse or definition of diversity in an attempt to attract archivists and institutions from diverse types of institutions that have diverse types of collection materials. So it's a fairly expansive definition of diversity, which is something I certainly appreciate. And the annual meeting is working not only to continuing to work not only to diversify the subject matter and programming and its sessions and appeal to archivists from all diverse categories, but also making sure to add things like gender neutral bathrooms, make sure that the hotels where they hold the meetings have gender neutral bathrooms, have quiet rooms, the various for breastfeeding mothers, that kind of thing. So this is all kind of part and parcel of SSA's commitment to furthering diversity and inclusion in our profession. So I think it's valuable for them to use it. Moving on to the Midwest Archive Conference, which is another region of which I'm a member. I derived that, obviously I live in Texas, I'm not in the Midwest, but I derived that from my former employment in the Midwest and knowing a lot of people in it. So again, once you start to know colleagues, you don't want to let go of them, and so you hold on to them as best you can. And one way to do that is to remain members of these regionals where you will see these people more often. Midwest Archives Conference is bigger than SSA. It involves 13 states: Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Michigan, Missouri, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. What we generally think of as like the heartland of America. Structure similar to what you would get for SSA. Instead of a board, there's a council that serves 3-year terms. Our current president is Eric Moore of the University of Minnesota. There are, again, like SIA and many regionals, the committees do mainstay of the actual day-to-day work. The committees and editorial boards, we have 10 standing. They are filled on volunteer bases, which means there's a lot of opportunity for people to get involved in MAC operations. It's the same way with SSA. There are a few elected positions. Most of these things you just volunteer to be on, and this is a good way to understand, to get involved, to add points to your CV, and also to sort of get to see how these kind of archival organizations work. Dues are a little more expensive than SSA, but still quite reasonable. They're staggered for students. Again, lots of different options. As far as activities go, like SSA, like other regionals, MAC has a newsletter with the clever name MAC Newsletter. Probably needs a title more than name. That's available print, also available online, comes out 4 times a year. Same type of thing, news items. You find out what's going on from individual states. There are regular columns on archival resources on the web and on electronic currents involving e-records. There's a lot of interesting. It's a good, quick, easy way to keep abreast of what is going on archivally in the region. Like SSA, there's their share of scholarships and awards. The big ones here are the Bowen Scholarship, which are financial assistance for students who are pursuing studies, particularly archival administration. The Motley Memorial Scholarship for students of color, financial assistance for students of color pursuing these studies. Again, this is a way that MAC is putting its money where its mouth is as far as encouraging diversification of the profession. The Emeritus Scholar, which allows first-timers to attend the MAC annual meeting. And there are a number of different award funds relating to different categories. The best article in the journal for the year, best article by a new author, first-time MAC attendees, that kind of thing. So you kind of see where it's going with this. MAC also has its own scholarly journal called Archival Issues, also printed online. This is a peer-reviewed scholarly journal. They issue twice a year. The back issues can all be obtained digitally through the MAC website. It is not just a simple newsletter. It is, in fact, as I said, it's a peer review. The articles are backed by scholarship. They're very well done. They're cited a lot. Major people in the field are writing for archival issues, but also students and new people are writing for it too. It's a very good, very rich source of archival scholarship. Like SSA, like ASA, there's an annual meeting. It's free for students, $25 for MAC members, $4 for non-members. Again, low cost to allow more people to get involved. One particularly interesting impact, I know SAA does this kind of thing too, is they have called the MAC Pals. This is what, like, if you're a new attendee, they will pair you with a veteran of MAC to sort of like guide you through the meeting. People who are, those of you probably remember going to your first conference or first meeting. It's probably, very overwhelming. I know it was for me. A lot of stuff going on, a whole new environment for you. And it's helpful to have that sort of guidance to help make you feel comfortable, make you feel welcome, sort of help you work you through the process. Tiered sponsorships, the same way that SAA does. They're working now on developing a code of conduct, which is something that I think anyone running any sort of conference in any sort of profession should have. And in tandem with the annual meeting, which is in the spring, their MAC also runs a fall symposium, smaller version of the annual meeting. It's done on specific, it's 1 to 2 days and deals with a specific archival topic. So it's more like a 1 to 2 day workshop rather than a conference. But there's also kinds of interesting topics, electronic records, Lone Rangers. There's all kinds of interesting subjects that come to mind. Also, as a regional, many educational opportunities, workshops, seminars. MAC has a speakers bureau for organizing events. They are creating a formal ethics and inclusion committee to promote and develop a culture of values diversity, inclusion, and ethical behavior within MAC. That's again a renewed commitment on the part of MAC and the profession to diversification within it. And MAC, like SSA, lives the values it proclaims. Annual meeting venues are always considered in terms of their labor responsibilities, their environmental responsibilities, and MAC, like SSA, has also issued its own share of important statements. One's most recently, again, support of Black Lives Matter, one that supported the Asian and Pacific Islander community in the face of ongoing violence. So again, MAC, like SSA, like the other regionals and like the other organizations we're about today, are sort of laboratories for archivists, new and old, to sort of test themselves in presentations and panels, test themselves in networking, test themselves in being part of a large organization, being part of committee work. There's a lot of there's a lot of promising material and a lot of good work that is done in these regionals. And that's why I personally am here today to talk about them, why I'm happy to support them, and why I'm happy to spiel for them at any point in time. And with that, I will take a breath and I will pass the torch to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I have so much written down. I will definitely be asking questions later on. But with that, I'm going to hand this over to Kathy Smith, who is with the Society of Tennessee Archivists. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. And I am really happy to be here. I'm coming to you today from the depths of the University Archive Storage Facility at Vanderbilt University in Nashville at an undisclosed location. So I am here today representing the Society of Tennessee Archivists. When I first moved to Tennessee in 1996, that's one of the first things I was told to do is to join the state organization. So that's what I did. The society started in 1977, and originally it was just called Tennessee Archivists. In the 1990s, they decided to add the Society of to fall more in line with other state organizations. The organization is primarily made up of professionals and county clerks. We have 99 counties in Tennessee, and one of the main missions and continuing goals is to have archives established in all of those 99 counties. I believe they are up to somewhere in the 80s now, where there are about 80 some archives in all the counties. So a lot of what we do in the Tennessee Archivists is education. I'm sure a lot of you know that county clerks, when they retire, they often go on to become volunteer archivists for their counties, along with retired school teachers and politicians and other folks. And so one of the big things that Tennessee Archivists focuses on is continuing education or ground up education, looking at how the state has been organized through the years. We take a lot of leadership from the state archives in Nashville, which, may I just say, if you ever get a chance to come to Nashville, they just opened their brand spanking new Tennessee State Library and Archives building, which is gorgeous. I must say, it is definitely form and function. So I would definitely take a gander at that if you ever get down there. So like many of the other organizations, we have a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer. We have an archivist because our official Society of Tennessee archives are stored at the Tennessee State Library and Archives, and they were officially accessioned in 2018. So we have our historical record there. And just because we like to be like everyone else, we have paper and electronic archives. So we want to make sure that we give those electronic archivists something to work with. One of the things that we do is we have a lot of collaborations with other Tennessee organizations. A couple of years ago, we had a joint meeting with the Tennessee Association of Museums, and we were able to work with them and with the Tennessee Historical Properties, I think. And so that was, we've had some really great collaborations. You may have heard of a somewhat defunct organization called the Southern Archives Conference. I know that Lorraine has, but that also was something that Tennessee worked hard on. And the advocacy that we do, a lot of it is with education. We have at least 2 awards for every Tennessee History Day. And often many of the members of the organization are volunteer judges for that. So I've participated in that, and that's a lot of fun. Our membership is pretty average as far as a price. It's the $30. We don't really, why do institutional when you can do regular? So that's one of the things that we have discussions about is the pricing. We bumped it up $5 from 25 a couple of years ago, and it took an almost a act of God to get that done. But here we are today at $30. Most of our meetings, sans the ones from last year, are held at Tennessee state parks. And that allows us to have a very reduced rate because if you're associated with the state in any way, then you get a reduced rate on conference costs. And the lodging in that is very doable for most people. So that has been great. I think Tennessee's got like 50 state parks. So we're slowly working our way through all of them. And that has allowed us to also be able to visit a lot of the historical sites in Tennessee. So besides that, we do have our quarterly semi-annual newsletter. We always make sure we get one out a month or two before our November meetings, because we have decided to not hold in-person elections anymore. We use, RedCap or one of the doodle polls, and that's how we do all of our elections now. So that came up way before the whole quarantine mess did. So that has been working for us for quite a while. As far as besides advocacy with education throughout the state, the Society of Tennessee Archivists has written letters of support for Black Lives Matter, for, I don't know if you remember the debacle a few years ago when they wanted to decommission the Georgia State Archives. So we have written many occasions. We also try to get input from all of our membership, which runs 100 to 150 people. And so we'll run quick polls or send out a quick message on social media, asking for feedback on, things that are either in state organized or federally organized. I know recently there had been a call by SAA to send letters to congressmen about funding matters. So we did that also. We sent that out to all of our people. So getting to virtual conferences and meetings. Last year was new for us, like everyone else. This is just a quick screenshot of some of the things that we had for our conference attendees. I don't know if you all have experienced this, but for our virtual meeting, we actually had an uptick in participation because it was free and you could log in and log out wherever you wanted. We also had some great presenters from across the country who otherwise we would have not been able to afford to bring in. So this coming year, for us, November 2021, which will be our conference, we are going to hold a half and half meeting. It will be at Paris Landing State Park, which is up in the northwestern part of Tennessee, up near Kentucky. And but you can also Zoom in, and we'll be able to participate in most of the sessions that way. Unfortunately, they will not be able to participate in our fun annual end of the meeting event, which basically gives a free sort of prize, sometimes white elephant-ish, to everyone in attendance. But but we've really worked hard this year to try to contact our, I won't say our people, but yeah, the Tennessee archivists, and keep them in the loop. A lot of the, what we've been hearing is a lot of the county folks were feeling very isolated because there wasn't travel, there was no money for travel. And so we initiated a few get-togethers, Zoom get-togethers. One of the best ones was we had a Halloween party online the Friday before Halloween, where everyone got into costume, and and then we talked about what was going on in each person's archives and how things were going as far as muddling through what everyday life in this new environment. Mary, could you flip for me? So this was the theme of last year's virtual meeting. Some of the things I mentioned, the challenges of online life. We limited the conference to one day just so that we didn't have conference fatigue from sitting in front of the screen for 8 hours a day. We experienced lots of tech issues. We had someone who was running like virtual support for folks who were not that tech savvy. We have lots of slow link ups and things like that abounding. We did have more participation, like I mentioned. And this time we were not limited by our funding. We did not have any sponsors, but like I said, we were able to save money by getting some folks to present to us from New Jersey and places like that. Normally we give out 2 scholarships, one based on need and one for a student. This year we didn't have that, nor did we have our annual John Thweet Archival Advocacy Award, which is given every year to someone within the state who has shown through their leadership and their working with cultural organizations to support the progress and growth of archives within the bounds of Tennessee. So we're hoping to get back into that this year. One of the things we all missed was hanging with our people and hanging out and just, shooting the stuff around and enjoying that. So this next meeting that we're having in November will be a mix of in-person and online, which will be sort of yet another frontier for us. Often we invite or we get the participation of some of the SAA education, people who you can pay and they'll teach you and you'll get educational credits. So we're hoping to be able to resume that also, since many of our people are striving to get their certified archivist membership going, or they're working on library degree or something like that that doesn't cover certain parts of what we all know as the archival process. So we are celebrating, our, 44th year. We have incredible swag. I'm often on the swag committee, so we always try to get something that for people to take away. But I would have to say is that a lot like probably what Lorraine is going to say, it's just a matter of reaching out to people, and when they move to the state, keeping in touch with them. And then we've been very blessed recently with some very active student SAA groups. So that also brings life and sort of love into the meetings. That's pretty much all I got. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I am very jealous that you all meet at state parks. So with that, I'm going to give control over to Lorraine. Lorraine Stuart is with the Society of Mississippi Archivists. And you now have control, Lorraine.
Thank you, Mary. I am coming to you. Let me see. I'm not able to turn the slide, Mary. Here we go. Okay, great. So I'm with the University of Southern Mississippi, and I was elected to the Society of Mississippi Archivists Board in April of 2019. So I just rotated off. So a little more than half of my tenure was during COVID or a little post-COVID. So I'm going to discuss sort of the transitions that we had to make like everyone else. But I wanted to start just with some background. And I'm not sure why I'm having trouble. Oops. Okay, here we go. So we also were established in 1977. So we are approaching our 45th. We're made up of basically academic archivists and archivists from the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, which is our state archives, and with some people from Mississippi Library Commission, historical societies, and smaller museums, or also students and individuals. But it's a small organization. Mississippi is sparsely populated. We only have about 3 million people in the state. So before, in like recent history, our kind of benchmark membership was 35 members. That we have not assessed dues since COVID, so we don't really quite know where we stand, but we have been doing outreach, and as we get back to normal, I think we may be able to increase those numbers. Okay, oops. So some of the things that we do officially, we have the primary source, which we publish, and that it has become peer reviewed since 2016, and that helps with the university archivists, of which I think the majority are at SMA, because it counts towards tenure. But that is stored in the digital repository at Southern Miss. We have the annual meetings each April. So that means the last two have been virtual. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we have outreach activities. We participate with the Mississippi Historical Society on different levels. Some of our members are actually on that board, others present and or attend. We also judge the Archival Award for Mississippi History Day, and then we do presentations, digitization days, those types of things to get out in the community. Now on the website, we have certain resources we keep. There's the speakers and consultants list. So those people are available to go out to historical societies and talk on different topics. In addition to the website, we have the Facebook page and some social media. We do have a multi-institutional LibGuide, and that is actually hosted again at Southern Miss. And I'll show you a couple of screenshots of that, but it's for students and researchers throughout the state. It's so that they know where, just in broad terms, where certain collections are, and it's searchable by institution or subject, and it links to the finding aid site or the website for the institution. And these are the broad subjects that we covered in the LibGuide. Let's take a look at that. And then you see how it links out, and note that it's mostly our state archives in different universities, as well as one of our very active county public libraries that has a big genealogy collection. Okay, we also have done position statements following George Floyd's death in June. Well, we issued the statement in June of 2020, Black Lives in Archives. And that was written by our president at the time, Jessica Perkins-Smith. And she did a good job with it and talked about the importance of the inclusivity in the archival record and documentation as related to civil rights. Then in the same month following that, there another board member, and both of these, of course, were approved by the board, was a statement on the Confederate monuments. Then more recently, we issued a letter, and again, Jessica wrote this one, and wrote it very quickly in response to a proposal by the Mississippi Senate to change the way the Mississippi Department of Archives and History board members were nominated and confirmed. That's always gone where the current board nominates and the Senate approves. And it was going to be changed to really something that we feared was going to be political, because it was going to fall to the executive branch to appoint with Senate approval. But and so other organizations quickly got behind that statement, most notably Mississippi Humanities Council, and it was defeated within 3 weeks. So that was a success story for us recently. Now the annual meetings, as I mentioned, we have them in April, and we closed down in March, like I think most people did. And so we decided to transition very quickly to virtual, and we did. Like Kathy, we made a shortened program, only one day, and kind of made it more casual, and we're pleasantly surprised. We had the same experience that now I think has become common, is that you increase your geographic range and your attendance. So we too will probably continue as a hybrid, although this year we went totally virtual also. Also, another board member suggested that we do virtual table talks for the duration, and we launched a series. The board accepted proposals. They're 1 hour at lunch, got those approved and scheduled, and this year was on social justice and civil rights themes, kind of looking back on Mississippi history. And the next year, it will probably be Ask an Archivist, although that hasn't been firmed up yet. And just kind of go a little bit into those, just give you an overview. The first one was about a 1969 sit-in at Delta State, where over 50 college students ended up spending the night in Parchman Penitentiary, the infamous Parchman prison. And then we had the Margaret Walker Center, of course, Margaret Walker, the author of Jubilee, and the Scott Ford House are collaborating on a number of things. And Scott Ford House is dedicated to midwifery. And then we had this talk by 2 documentary filmmakers whose grandfather actually they lived in what we call the Delta. And for people not in Mississippi, the Delta is actually in the northeast part of Mississippi. It's where the Yazoo River meets the Mississippi River. And people don't realize it, but there's been a large historic Chinese American population there. And so these filmmakers came down and ended up doing a film called Finding Cleveland, which is the name of the town, which, by the way, also has the only other Grammy museum in the country. If you're ever in the Delta, you should see it. And then just this Friday, we had Against All Odds, the first Black legislators in Mississippi. And one of the board members had compiled a website, And so it was kind of built on that. And these are the legislators that came to the House of Congress when during Reconstruction. And two women who descended from them actually spoke. And it was, they were all really interesting. They're on YouTube if you want to find them. I know that's long, but you can just kind of go to YouTube and search Society of Mississippi Archivists. And this year, I think, as I mentioned, we'll be going back kind of this year, we really looked at like people from outside the archival profession, people that were using the archives and to talk. And next year, we're probably going to shift more to professional presenters and give people advice. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. I'm getting some wonderful ideas to bring back to my state org. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annia Gonzalez, who's talking on behalf of the South Florida Archives Collective. One moment while I find Annia, you now have control.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Annia Gonzalez. And as Mary said before, I work for Florida International University in Miami, Florida. And today I'm representing South Florida Archive Collective. The South Florida Archive Collective actually reestablished in 2017. When I started at FIU in 2003, I was invited to a couple of meetings, I would say, to another organization that was here in Miami. After a few years, some people retired, others members moved from Miami, and for some time, nothing happened. In 2017, some librarians and archivists here at FIU, we got together and we decided to start again this wonderful group, and that's how we started again in 2017. We are, compared to the rest, we are a very small group. Right now, I would say that we have around 100 members. But that doesn't mean that we are not organized. We are trying to organize ourselves. We are learning from other organizations. That's why it's wonderful that I'm here today. Our membership, it's free and it's open to archivists, curators, librarians from museums, historical societies, public and academic libraries in South Florida. Right now, we don't have a president. However, we have, I would say, a leader that she's here today. That's Ria Ray. And she and a couple of us, we organize workshops, the talks, everything that we do. However, we have 6 standing committees, and they are communication, community outreach, membership, professional and development committee, preservation and disaster assistance, and we also have a secretary and a historian who is also here today, and that's Catherine. For our educational opportunities and activities, we organize students' internships, workshops, the Zoom talks. We started them during the COVID pandemic. Before that, we never had that, and it has been very successful. A lot of people attended. Like Kathy said, we had found that the online events, sometimes we get more people than we used to get when it was in person. And we also offer tools for funding opportunities. For example, during the COVID-19, the communication and professional development committees were very active in informing all of us about new resources, workshops. Every day they would get a list of everything that was going on in the United States. Basically every single workshop, talks related to archive and special collections. So that was wonderful during the COVID-19, and they are still doing that, and we really appreciate that. That's what I was talking about, the educational opportunities and activities. Here is our website. We also do, since we are such a small group, basically everybody knows each other. We go to museums, galleries, archive, and libraries. Here in Miami, we move a little bit more up, another county. And what we want to do is to really get together and showcase what we have in Miami. We don't want just the tourist Miami. We want to showcase our history. We want to know what resources other institutions have, and also to know the needs of other institutions. We have in our group like a small, when I said small, it's a very, very small museums, for example, and we have organizations such as FIU that have a lot of resources. And for example, if they need to scan something, FIU would say, okay, we can scan it for you for free, because they don't have the resources. So that's how and why we visit them, to see the kind of materials and what they really need. We also have this wonderful event that is called Archive Day. We organize that every October. In the past, it used to be in person, and last year we had to do it online. But as I said before, it was wonderful. I think that we actually got to double the attendees last year. It's always free, but it was very convenient. Like I think it was Kathy said, just the flexibility of people coming in and out, or decided which speaker they wanted to listen. It was wonderful. So what we do when it's in person, we have done it twice here at my institution at Florida International University. We invite all of our members. They come and we have tables set up on the second floor of the library, which is huge. And everybody brings brochures, items from the collection. So they have, that day they have an opportunity of showcasing what they have. The type of material, if they are looking for internships, that's the time to do it too, because we invite FIU students and professors, and we have been matching students. We don't have here in South Florida a library school, but we have a lot of students from the history department who are interested in archives. So that is a wonderful opportunity for them. Sometimes the students don't even know what they have in the cities. They don't even know that we have a small museum. They don't even know that they have a historical society. So this is wonderful for us. That's an event that we all enjoy. It's a time to get together, to see each other. We always have a wonderful time. However, last year during COVID, and because of COVID, we have to do it online. So what we did, we decided to change the program. We had speakers that we never had before. We had another session called Ask an Archivist, and it was wonderful. So we think from what we learned that this year we're gonna do it like a hybrid event. We're gonna do it in person and online too, to give everybody the opportunity to be present if you wanna come, but it depends on how things are here in Miami in October, but that's the plan so far. For communications, we have social media, and we use Twitter, and that's our at South Florida Archive. We have a newsletter. It's online, and we publish it every 3 months. We have our listserv, and we also have a professional development and education calendar. So if you go to our calendar, you're gonna find what is going on every day in terms of workshops, conferences, everything that is related to professional development. Oh, and by the way, that there, it's our logo. We don't have a president, but we voted for the name. And we also created this logo, and it represents the blue, it's the water, and the green, it's Miami, how green we are too, surrounded by the water. And I think that this is my last slide. And you can see Archive Day, that was in 2019. Last time we did it in person. That is me talking to some students here at FIU. I just wanted to show you how we do it. We have a table, and because my department here at FIU is Special Collections and University Archive, I just have, for example, items from Special Collections, but also, as you can see, there is a picture there. Those are pictures from FIU at the beginning when we were building the campus. So it's wonderful. Students see that for the first time, and sometimes they don't realize that we always said that we are a young university, but we are not that young anymore. So we have a history, and that's what we like to showcase in that day. And the other picture is a visit to University of Miami in Tier 2, in the library, and that is the University Archives department. So that day was a wonderful experience too. We got to see they have so many things there. So it's always wonderful for us to visit small places, but also big places too. And I think that that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annia.
You're welcome.
So we are coming up against 3 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you all for attending. We will take some questions, but I realize that we are bumping up against the hour. So the link will be posted to the RAAC listserv for the recording tomorrow. So if you aren't able to stay, you can rewatch this question portion that comes up. So for those of you that do have questions, please feel free to send those in the chat, or you are more than welcome to come onto mic and or video and ask that. I have a question for the presenters. I heard about many statements that were written, and I believe it was Lorraine or Kathy that mentioned that their president was the one that was writing those. So my question is do any of the groups have an advocacy group, committee, or a specific person for advocacy, or is it always falling to the board/president?
Well, for us at Tennessee Archivists, it usually falls upon the board, but we often solicit input because we don't want to just be, activists running amok, so to speak, without the general support of our membership.
Lorraine is unmuted. Did you want to add?
Well, it's basically been the board. As I mentioned, we are, we're a small organization, and we haven't been even assessing dues during COVID. So we kind of have been acting really on the behalf of our members.
For our groups, like everyone else, the board or the council or whatever its name is, depending on where it is, has to actually approve it. But certainly those aren't done without input from the membership. In the case of for SSA, for example, excuse me, for SSA, for example, our statement on Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, that was sort of handed to our advocacy committee to tinker with and write up and make comments on, and then it was passed back upwards to the board. So yeah, so I mean, these aren't done without input from interested parties.
And Mary, for us, since we don't have a board, it has been part of the talk, the general talk, but actually we haven't done it.
And I see that Susan Switos has her hand up.
Yes, my question is to Lorraine. I loved the idea of the Confederate monument statement, and I looked for it on your website already, and I did not see it. So I was wondering if that's something that's going to be posted at a later date.
No, it's either, it may be, let me find it. It should be in, okay, I think we may have that under news. That's where the one with the, the board, I'm sorry, but you know what I can do? Oh, no, it is. Okay, so it was written June 29th, 2020, and you have to scroll down. It's under the news section on our website.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions from audience members before I go into my own questions? I have a question for Jeremy. SSA, approximately how many members are there?
I can't give you an exact figure, but I should be able to have one. But we've got, I want to say around 500.
Okay.
And MAC, I believe, again, I can't be sure, it's around 700, I think.
Yeah, I was wondering about how the funding for all those scholarships go, because you guys have quite a lot of scholarships, but I guess with that number of members.
It's not just fee driven. I mean, one can donate money to
Yes.
scholarships if someone were inclined.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. For Kathy, what social media are you all on? You mentioned polling your members.
Well, we do send out, I think, red cap surveys or doodle polls, but we are most active in Facebook and a little bit of Instagram, but you know, probably we've been trying to gin together and recruit a social media coordinator. But that may happen soon, probably by the time that we have the next meeting. But we do try to post something just about every other day or so that we find either from the different regional groups or national organizations.
Thank you. And I don't see any questions in the chat. I do see someone mention that they will be joining MAC. So my last question for you all is I heard several mentions of going half and half for annual meetings. Do you guys have any advice for going forward with that? Half and half, virtual and in person is what I mean, by the way.
Well, one of the things that we did is we decided as a group to purchase a Zoom membership, which I think we are allowed up to 100 people at a time. And we thought we would never get to that, but we actually got close to it with the high 80s and low 90s a few times. So that really surprised us. But so there was some monetary outlay there. And we've decided to keep that for other smaller workshops and things like that. But it's going to be interesting, I think, to get this hybrid model together. I think there will some things that will be very well suited for it, and other more hands-on things that will be probably noted in the program that they will not be web available.
Thank you.
And Mary, for us, we are gonna try this for the first time. And the idea basically is to have, for example, just 3 hours one day and 3 hours the other day. We also wanna do it in 2 days. Sometimes people don't have the flexibility now that everybody's back in the office of having 6 hours or a long time. So we're just trying that. Let's see how it goes. This is a learning process. So we are all learning and we are all trying new and different things. So let's see, but that's the idea. We're gonna see if we can do it in person and at the same time recording it, do it in Zoom and 2 days maybe. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a learning experience for many of us that are attempting that.
Mary, we have not done a hybrid yet, but another event that we had at the university, for what they have started to do is have some of the things pre-recorded. So that might be a good option, just in case.
That's great.
Mary, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So for example, because we don't have this, I saw that you all have peer review publications. So who can publish? You have to be a member of the organization to publish, or it's open to everybody? Because that's something that we would like to include in ours here in Miami, but we don't know how to do that. So how do you do it? How do you?
Ours is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lorraine.
No, you go on, Jeremy.
Okay, so for, man, excuse me, that time of the afternoon. For archival issues, which is the max peer reviewed journal, it's open to everybody. You don't have to be a member. You just, and they welcome, in most places, they're like, they especially welcome, people that haven't published at all, or people who are new publishing. They welcome that. So yeah, it's open to, you don't have to be a member. It's open to everybody.
Thank you. That's so good. It's open.
And you also don't have to be a member of Society of Mississippi Archivists. You don't have to be an academic professor, just as long as it gets approved. So we do prefer, of course, that it has some relation to Mississippi or to the general profession.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing. Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Thank you so much to the presenters. I really enjoyed learning so much today. I have a full page of notes that I will be taking back to the Society of Florida Archivists. And with that, I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to stop recording. Thank you all again. And that is it for our webinar today.